Good morning, and welcome to everyone for another episode of the All the Places We'll Go show with your hosts, Richie and Mark. We are here every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Every Friday, yep, you heard it right, every Friday at 8 a.m. to bring some amazing life stories of some of the most renowned individuals, guaranteed to inspire you as you sip on your morning coffee and await the weekend to perhaps reflect on your own journey and how to navigate it. Now, it's certainly clear that some of the most successful people have not had an easy ride. And it's actually the ups and downs of their journeys that help them to build resilience and move forward to springboard their way to eventual success. But look, this show is not about successes. As impressive as they are, it's actually about their journeys. We want to understand what it really takes to make it and to help others to learn from role models in this incredibly uncertain time. Now, on the show this morning, we have a very special guest who has traversed many worlds, from his beginnings in India to starting a fintech company here in the UK before it was even called fintech. Today, Rajesh Agrawal is one of the most prominent members of public office here in London, and he's the Deputy Mayor of London for Business. And what a time. I tell you what a time to taking up a job like this, Rajesh. But look, his genuine passion for business and wanting to help others succeed is really inspiring and really shines through. So it's a real treat to have you on this morning. And we're going to learn more about the man behind the job and learn how he was able to put himself center stage in one of the most turbulent times in our recent history. So it's with great pleasure that I welcome you onto our show today, Rajesh. It's a real privilege to have you on. Mark, over to you for the first question.
What practical advice would you have for people who are looking to start their own business?
Well, first of all, you got to really believe in the idea. Whatever you are doing, you have to have your 100% belief in the idea and belief in yourself that you can do it. I had not even 1% of the doubt that I won't be successful. So I think that belief and conviction is very important, because that conviction then drives you to persevere despite problems, because you believe that you're going to be successful. You continue edging forward despite all the challenges. So that's one thing. Second is, despite your conviction, be ready to adopt. So don't be stubborn in terms of this is my idea and this is it. How you deliver and achieve that idea and how you go about doing it. We've got to learn from the best. We look around. We can learn. Learning is all around us. We can learn from our employees. We can learn from our colleagues. We can learn from just everybody. But the most importantly, we learn from our customers. Our customers are the best teachers, because they will tell you, they will lead you to innovation. They'll give you the feedback, which is absolutely crucial as you develop the business. And whatever you do, always keep customer at the center, because that will then drive your business automatically. Don't chase the money. I never chase the money. Focus was always providing a great service and keeping customers first. And if you do that, everything else is just sort of falls in place.
I love that thinking, Rajesh. Can I turn to a slightly different topic and ask, what was the job interview like to become the Deputy Mayor of London?
Oh, that is, I love this job, by the way. Sadiq and I often discuss this, and Sadiq says, I've got the best job in the world. I said, no, I've got the best job in the world. And it is a great job, because London is the greatest city in the world. And it's an amazing city, whether it's, you talk about finance, we are the financial capital of the world. You talk about tech, we are the tech capital of Europe, and certainly one of the top 3 in the world. You talk about life sciences, we are amazing. 25% of the top 100 prescription drugs were discovered in London. It's amazing. You talk about sports, we've got Lords for cricket, we've got Wembley for football, we've got Twickenham for rugby. It's just amazing. We've got Wimbledon for tennis. You talk about entertainment and concerts, we've got more theaters than any other city in the world. We've got the O2, which is the world's #1 concert venue. It hosts more concerts than any other city in the world. We've got more international law firms than any other city. It's amazing. London is where the whole world comes and is the sort of microcosm. So I love the job, and just taking a little bit backwards, as I was developing the business, I was also quite interested in making a positive difference to the society. So I got involved in numerous charities and so on, and that's where sort of the drive of bringing social change came. And then I realized that if you got to bring change at a big scale, you got to get involved in policy and politics, and that's got me interested a bit more in politics. I helped Sadiq in his campaign and got him involved. My focus was that Sadiq is the right man for the job. Let's get him in City Hall. And what a campaign it was! But that's a whole together separate topic. But what a campaign! Sadiq won, and it's kudos to Londoners, and it's a testimony for London that it is truly an open city in the current environment. Somebody like Sadiq, somebody of his race, somebody of his faith, somebody of his background can be elected with more votes than any other politician in British history, is a testimony of London to London's openness. So he won, and I thought, job done. So, great. I'm back in my business. But then just a few weeks after, the UK voted to leave the European Union. So referendum happened. And that's when Sadiq called me and said, look, can you help me in City Hall? So I was headhunted as opposed to a typical job interview.
Brilliant. I love that. I'll pass it to Mark for the next question, but I just want to tell everybody in the audience that please put your questions onto the chat, into the special Q&A section, and we will pick them up, and you get to ask Rajesh whatever you like. So Mark, what do you think? What's the next question?
So I'm really personally quite pleased that we've got somebody who cares so much in the role that you're doing, Rajesh, in London, because it's difficult times. So that's great to hear. But I guess it's not all a bed of roses. So it never is, and that's the point of this show to some extent. So what would you describe as your lowest ebb in your career?
There've been quite a few. Obviously, career never goes like this or like this. So it's always ups and downs. And in business, for example, like I said, when we had the financial crash, the economy in 2007, 2008, at that time, the business was at a huge risk, and we were quite early and young as business. And it was quite stressful at the time, but we quickly pivoted. And from a business sort of in my business, I would say that was one of the most difficult times. And it's like, this is why when I see entrepreneurs facing these challenges, I get it. I've seen it, and how stressful it can be, because this is, you put your heart and soul in this thing. It's like your baby, and you have there's huge amount of emotional investment. It's not just finance and money. There's a huge amount of emotional investment in it. So that's one. But in this role in City Hall, I mean, London is the greatest city in the world, but we have faced huge amount of challenges. I mean, so I was appointed in this role 6 days after the referendum, and so straight in the deep end. And I remember in that period, the prime minister had just resigned, etc. There was huge amount of political and economic uncertainty that week. Sterling dropped by 15% or so, and there's huge amount of uncertainty. So that was a big challenge, reassuring London businesses, entrepreneurs, reassuring foreign investors that London is still a great city. So that was a big challenge. We've continued with the political uncertainty for quite some time. There were two general elections in the last 4 years, which were totally sort of unplanned, unexpected. And we've, of course, had the unfortunate terrorist attacks in London. We had sort of, the Grenfell Tower fire, which was one of the worst fires that happened in many decades in London. Those are all tough times, when you are in this seat, because you're directly emotionally so linked to it. I mean, of course, the people who are directly affected are nothing compares to that. But you feel so much on your shoulders. Is quite incredible. And then, as the term was coming to an end, and we were preparing for the elections, the biggest pandemic in 100 years happens. Half the world goes in lockdown. Thousands of people lose their lives, and it is tough. It is tough. But look, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going, and that's what it's all about. And it's not just me; it's everybody. We are all like that. We are all very strong when the crisis comes.
So Rajesh, what you're describing is that you've not had the simplest of times. But look, we're getting so many questions coming through. And by the way, I just want to thank all our regulars on the show. Lots of great questions coming through. Thanks, Jess, Arissa, Peter Jones, Dish, RG, Raju, of course, another regular on the show. So we've got lots of questions for you here. I think we've covered a few around the challenges. So Peter and Jess, hope you've got your answers to those. I want to pick up a question from Dish. So they ask, throughout all of this extreme sort of circumstances and challenges, and of course the ups and downs, how do you manage? I know you've got two daughters, and how do you manage your personal life throughout all of this? How do you get a balance of that in such a demanding job?
Well, I'm lucky that my wife's extremely supportive of what I do, and she's always sort of encouraged me what I do. But I always try and try and spend time with me. I think it's hugely important that you spend time with your family and have some balance, because if you don't do that, then you'll burn out, and secondly, you lose your sanity, I think, to a certain extent, if you just. So it's a place. Home is a place where you are very grounded. It's more sort of reality check as well. It's in Indian tradition, they say that life can be divided in sort of 4 stages. First stage is all about learning, and so let's say if you were living for 100 years, so it's 25 years, sort of 4 chapters. The first is about learning. They call it the brahmacharya ashram and so on. And then the second phase is about being a householder, doing your business, and having children, etc. Then the third chapter is about giving to the society, and less focus on your home, but actually more focus on the society and giving back to the world. And then the last is about yourself and spirituality and etc. And I believe that rather than stages, these are 4 aspects that you got to live at once at all times in your life. And that's what I try to do. So I want to be learning all my life. I don't want to just leave it when I was a student and I've learned it all. It's not, we have to learn all our lives, all the time. In fact, the real learning begins when, you are in the real world, when you finish your university. And I want, I want to be a family person, and in business, I'm still an entrepreneur at heart. Why wait till late until you can contribute and give back to the world? There's no there's no minimum age to start that. You start whenever you're ready. And why leave your personal self development and spirituality, etc., right to the end? It will all help you in whatever else you are doing. So that's why I believe in sort of these are the 4 aspects which I try and balance in my life.
That sounds like a wonderful balance to me, and I know a lot of people watching here will benefit from hearing that. Now, in terms of sorry, I've completely lost the thread of my question. Richie, go back to you, sir. I'll just completely.
I've got a couple of questions I want to pick up from the audience, in fact. So people are talking a little bit about London, future of London. In fact, could there be other hubs and how to partner? And also, what sort of do you think are some of the impacts, particularly on industries such as travel, tourism, events, and how do we kind of get back to that thread? So picking up on questions from RG and Raju in that respect.
Yeah, London is perhaps the most well-connected global city that there is in the world. So we already do a lot of work with other cities around the world, whether it's in Europe, so Berlin and Paris, whether it's in the US, whether it's LA, San Francisco, New York, whether it's in India, Mumbai. I mean, it's London is the most sort of global city, and will continue. And I know Sadiq says that it's always best to copy well than try and invent badly, basically. So wherever there is a good idea anywhere in the world, we try and sort of pick that. And equally, we are very happy to share our ideas and open up. Um, it's like we call it in the software world, the SaaS, isn't it? Software as a service or open source. I think those are the terms we need to bring in government and politics. We need an open city as a service, or open source. So when we have got good idea in government, we just sort of share it with other cities, and there's so much potential collaboration, particularly when it comes to climate change, when it comes to innovation. I know in fintech already regulators are talking to other sort of country regulators about how to replicate sandbox, the financial the regulatory sandbox, where fintech entrepreneurs are able to experiment with their new products in a controlled environment. So there's a huge amount of international element to London, which will always continue. The worst hit industry in the current pandemic is the travel, tourism, leisure, events. I mean, these are hospitality. These are huge industries in London. I mean, as somebody who's responsible for promoting London worldwide for tourism, and I know, last year we had 21 million international tourists in London. So London receives more international tourists than any other city in the world. And of course, tourism right now is like virtually nothing, right? And so that's a big impact on London's economy and all the related industries. But I believe, first of all, that when things get better, and when the pandemic is over, tourism will flock back into London. I've absolutely no doubt about it. We are already doing a lot of work to make sure that London is on top of the minds of the international tourists when they start reconsidering. So we have launched something called Virtually London. So we are promoting a lot of London tourist destination virtually, so people can take advantage of that. My team also runs Visit London, which is the number one, the official tourism website for London. Um, I mean, for events, London is the biggest sort of events city in the world, and that those not just sort of sporting events. So if you remember, last year we had the Cricket World Cup, and on the same weekend we had Wimbledon, and on the same weekend we had not far from London in Silverstone the Formula One race. So three big global sporting event in and around London. Absolutely phenomenal. Only London can pull this. But the entertainment, Euros were planned this year for in London. So it's a huge change and big impact on these industries. But I know that some of these are adopting already. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had London Tech Week. For the first time, the entire Tech Week was all virtual. If there's one industry that can adapt to it, is the tech industry. So I believe, and that's why the mayor and I keep on lobbying the government that this is the time to support businesses, especially now that we are seeing a second wave and the restrictions have been increased. This is the time to increase the support, not to decrease it.
So, Rajesh, apologies for my brain lapse. I guess we're all beautifully imperfect. There we go. Remember the question now. It was really just about that point of learning. You said that strand there. So what do you think you still have yet to learn?
We always have to learn. I mean, you have to we have to learn constantly. And sometimes learning is not necessarily learning completely new. It's sort of progression, and you become more and more sort of wiser. So you've got the data, and you've got the information, you've got the knowledge, and then you've got the wisdom. And I think we are constantly developing wisdom as we are sort of going along. Of course, there's more data and more information and more knowledge, but wisdom, I think, you keep on doing it. So there's no one particular thing but I think we just sort of fine tune what we have, and you keep on learning. I mean, there's so much to learn in this world. It's incredible. Nobody has learned it all. So we just need that attitude. And if we've got the eye for learning, then we can learn all around. It doesn't have to be all from the textbooks. Learning is real life.
Who have you learned most from in that sense? Who's the wisest person?
Oh gosh, I don't think there is one, and I don't think anybody should think that there is one person. I think again, learning is an attitude, and if a person has that attitude, then you learn from all around you. I mean, I remember this incident when I was in 1000 college, and I saw the cleaner who was sweeping the floor, and I saw the students littering as he's sweeping, and he kept on sweeping, and he did it with full concentration and full passion. And I said to him, I said, don't you get annoyed that people are littering as you're sweeping, and this is what you do all day? And he said, look, they are littering, it's up to them. Cleaning is my job, and I want to do it with full dedication, and I want to be the best cleaner in the whole world. And I thought, what a great person this is. I mean, that and some people might think that cleaning, a sweeper is a sort of lowly job, but it's not. This guy is doing it with full passion and enthusiasm, so I give him 5-star on that. And that's what I learned from him. It's not what you do is important, or your job role. It's about how much you put your effort in and how passionate you are is what matters.
Rajesh, I've got a question here from Professor Jaydeep Prabhu from Cambridge, a renowned professor from there, and he has strong links with India, and he just asks about perhaps what are some of the links between the UK and India in terms of entrepreneurship that you see over the next couple of years.
Oh, India and UK are, as Prime Minister Modi calls the sort of Indian community living in the UK as the living bridge between the two countries. It's truly, and I'm part of that bridge. And so I chair London and Partners, which is London's official trade, investment and tourism promotion agency. We opened 2 offices in India, one in Mumbai, one in Bangalore. India is the second largest investor in the UK and also in London. So after the US, it's India, and then China, and then other sort of European countries. So India is a big partner. India is one of the, pre-pandemic, it was one of the fastest growing major economy in the world. And that's why I think, the link between the two countries is phenomenal. There are about 1.5 million Indians, people of Indian origin in the UK. Many of them in entrepreneurs and business. And I think there's a real opportunity in the two countries to come together. We are already seeing Indian companies, not just the large corporate ones like the Tatas and so on, Tata is one of the largest employers in this country. But not just that, but a lot of innovative companies. So for example, Ola Cabs, they expanded into London and other cities in the UK. You've got Oyo Rooms, they've expanded into London and the UK. And equally, a lot of British companies are expanding there. So what we have done is we run a program called the Mayor's International Business Program, where we help London businesses to expand overseas. So every year, at least a couple of times, we take that delegation to India and open up doors for them. So we had fintech delegation once. Again, India is a big fintech market for London entrepreneurs. It's a great place to do that. But we also launched a program called India Emerging 20, where we run a competition in India, pick 20 of the most innovative startups and help them come into London and expand globally via London. So that's another very successful program. So I think there's a real opportunity for both the countries to work together.
Rajesh, I got huge respect for you moving from the private sector and from entrepreneurial start into public office. I don't think I could ever do that. The reason being that anything that's political, people just hear what they want to hear, see what they want to see. and are often irrational about that. And so you will get criticism that you feel is unfair. And so how do you process that? How do you deal with that? How do you not get distracted by what you know to be unreasonable?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, Sadiq gets more of that, and not as much. But listen, I mean, are uh, people are emotionally invested in what is affecting their day-to-day life. If they think it's you know they've elected Sadiq, I'm in that responsible position. Of course, they will ask questions, and that's very natural. And criticism is a very important part of public life because it keeps you on your toes. It gives you a feedback, and I think it's hugely important that that continues. It's important not to take it personally, that it's actually happening because you are in a particular post. So it's not Rajesh Agrawal that they're criticizing. If they are, it's the Deputy Mayor of London and their expectations from what Deputy Mayor of London for business should be doing, or what should be doing, or what they're not doing, or whatever. So it's important not to take it personal. It's easier said than done, by the way. It can be tough, and especially with social media, etc. It's very easy. People are sort of anonymous. They don't, face to face. People would be a lot more civilized and give the criticism or their feedback in a certain way. On social media, is slightly different, but that's an issue around the world. Luckily, I don't get as much criticism.
Lucky position to be in there, Rajesh. You talked about an election earlier on this year, which was, of course, in the midst of the pandemic. But I think there's a number of questions coming through around what do you see as some of your next steps over the next sort of coming years? Perhaps, that entrepreneur at heart will come back in at some point. But love to get your thoughts on what the next sort of phase could look like for you.
I don't know, and that's the exciting thing about it, that you don't know what might happen. You never know your luck in a big city, right? I mean, who would have thought that the guy who came from India, with nothing a few years ago, will be able to create a successful business and then become the deputy mayor of the greatest city in the world. So the future is bright. I'm an optimist. I believe in that good things will happen if you keep working towards them. Good things will happen, and that's what it's all about. I don't have any planned next step. I love this job. I love London. So I'm very lucky to be in this position, and I just want to continue doing this work. My ambition is that as we emerge from pandemic, I mean, this is a crisis time, but it's also an opportunity to reimagine what our city might look like, and how it will impact, because this pandemic will have a big impact on our city as more people work from home. The footfall has massively decreased in central London. What it means for businesses in central London, what it means for outer London boroughs and local high streets. So I think there's an opportunity to reimagine. So I just want to. I'm fully focused on that at the moment.
So time has flown by incredibly fast. So we are coming towards the close. So your optimism absolutely shines through, Rajesh. So what would you say to our audience in terms of how they should and could maintain their optimism through what are really choppy waters?
Remain hopeful. It's very important that we remain hopeful about the future. This is a phase that will pass. It's a difficult time, but it's not going to last forever. It will not last forever. And we will come through this, we'll come out stronger. London as a city has faced huge challenges in the past, and it has overcome them, and it will overcome this challenge as well. And I'm not saying this as just a blind optimism, but history has proven this, that this city and this country is hugely resilient, whether it's the plague, whether it's the Great Fire, whether it's the war, all those things. We've come out stronger. So we will come out stronger. And I believe in the human spirit at the end of the day. We are all nice people. We want to help each other. We want to, we are strong from within. Sometimes that strength, our inner strength might be hidden. And sometimes we ourselves might be not aware of that strength. but we are all very, very strong people, because that's how it is. That's how we are designed. We are very resilient. So we will just stay hopeful. I mean, you look at, there are so many things in the world to get depressed about. But when you look on the other side, you think from a technology point of view, I mean, today in our hands with our mobile phones, we've got more processing power and more technology than what took the man on the moon for the first time, right? You look at on the health side, I mean, apart from the pandemic, so many diseases. What was the average lifespan of human being before and what it is today? People are living longer, people are living healthier. you know we talked about so many other things. There's future. I mean, I look at young people, and people are not obsessed with owning things. People, there's a whole sharing economy where people are more environmental conscious. Young people particularly are very sensitive to their wildlife, very, very sensitive to the environment, to the world. So there are so many positive things. So I'm very positive and hopeful for the world.
Rajesh, thank you. Honestly, it's been an inspirational session for me, and I've learned so much from it. The one thing, if I just may say to close, that I've really taken away is when you said, "Who would have thought?" Dot dot dot. And I think that sums up so much of your positivity, your attitude to life, about kind of constantly striving and trying to achieve more and better, with just such a sense of optimism. And I think for everyone watching here today, it's simply a case of who would have thought when it comes to your own lives to be able to join some of those dots later on. And I think for me, that's something that will stay with me for a long, long time, to think about who would have thought. And I want to then help to kind of finish that story. So thank you very much for your time this morning. I know you probably got the busiest schedule of any of us. So spending some time with us today has been a real and absolute privilege. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you for having me.
So just and also for me, Rajesh, so many wonderful insights. I take away the stay hopeful, but also the fact that you love your job so much and you compete with your boss on who claims to have the best job in the world. That's fantastic. So thank you everybody for dialing in. Next week, just a headline, we've got Rory Sutherland, who's chair of Ogilvy Group in the UK. He's also a global TED speaker with over 7 million views. He was president of the IPA, and he's an absolute expert in behavioral economics and an amazing ability to understand the beautiful irrationality of human beings. So thank you again, Rajesh. Thanks for dialing in. Have a great weekend and see you all next Friday.